Milo just got back from a week away. Beach, no laptop, actual sleep. He felt genuinely fine by day 4. And by the second morning back at his desk, it was like the trip never happened. Same heaviness, same dread scrolling through his inbox, same exhaustion that no amount of rest seems to touch anymore. If a vacation fixes everything except the thing you actually needed it to fix, you already know how strange and demoralizing that specific kind of tired feels. And it's not that you didn't rest properly. It's that rest was never actually the problem. Here's what nobody tells you about burnout that survives a vacation. It's not a sign you rested wrong, and it's definitely not proof you just need a longer trip next time. There's a very specific mechanism explaining why burnout snaps back so fast. And once you understand what's actually driving it, chasing bigger vacations starts to look like exactly the wrong solution. Let's start with what burnout actually is, because most people misunderstand it as simple tiredness that a break should logically fix. Psychologists define burnout using 3 specific components: emotional exhaustion, depersonalization or cynicism toward the work itself, and a reduced sense of personal accomplishment. Notice that only one of those 3 is about energy. The other 2 are about meaning and relationship to the work. A vacation can absolutely refill energy. It does almost nothing to address the other 2, which means someone can come back from a trip with a full tank and still walk straight back into the exact same cynicism and sense of futility that was draining them in the first place. Here's the part that explains why the crashback happens so fast, often within days. There's a concept called environmental reactivation, where the specific conditions that originally caused burnout, the inbox, the meeting culture, the same unresolved pressures, immediately trigger the same stress response the moment someone re-enters that environment, regardless of how rested their body currently is. Rest changes your internal state temporarily. It does nothing to change the external structure waiting for you the moment you walk back in. If the job itself has too much on someone's plate, too little autonomy, or a chronic mismatch between effort and reward, that structure is sitting there completely unchanged. The second the vacation ends, ready to reproduce the exact same conditions that caused the exhaustion the first time. But wait, there's a deeper reason vacations specifically fail to touch burnout, and it comes down to what researchers call the recovery paradox. Real recovery from chronic stress requires more than rest. It requires what psychologists call psychological detachment, genuinely disengaging mentally from work-related thoughts, not just physically leaving the building. Studies on this consistently find that many people on vacation don't actually achieve psychological detachment at all. They're still checking email, still mentally rehearsing a difficult conversation waiting for them back at the office, still calculating how far behind they'll be when they return. The body is on a beach. The nervous system never actually left the desk, which means the vacation provides the appearance of rest without providing the actual mechanism that would make recovery real. There's also something worth naming about the specific kind of burnout that's hardest to fix with time off. The kind rooted in what researchers call values incongruence, a chronic mismatch between what someone actually cares about and what their day-to-day work requires of them. This type of exhaustion isn't primarily about workload at all. It's about spending most of your waking hours on something that doesn't align with what actually matters to you. No amount of sleep resolves that gap, because the exhaustion was never really physical to begin with. It was existential, and existential problems don't respond to a week at the beach the way physical fatigue does. Here's something that explains why burnout often returns faster and harder the second time around. There's a documented pattern called burnout sensitization, where each cycle of burnout and temporary recovery leaves the nervous system slightly more reactive to the same stressors than it was before. It's similar to how a muscle that's been repeatedly strained becomes easier to re-injure. The threshold for feeling overwhelmed gets lower each time, not higher, which is why so many people report that their second or third burnout hit faster and harder than their first, even though on paper nothing about their workload actually changed. There's also a quieter structural issue worth naming clearly. A lot of workplace cultures implicitly treat vacation as a complete solution. A system reset that makes the underlying problem someone's personal responsibility to manage through better rest. rather than acknowledging that some environments are simply generating burnout faster than any amount of individual recovery could offset. When the actual source is structural, unsustainable workload, unclear expectations, lack of autonomy, no vacation length actually solves it, because the person is essentially bailing water out of a boat that's still taking on water the entire time they're gone. Now here's something that reframes this pattern completely. Burnout that survives a vacation isn't evidence that someone doesn't know how to rest or that they're simply not resilient enough. It's usually accurate information, correctly identifying that the problem was never primarily about hours slept or days away from a desk. The exhaustion is pointing at something structural or values-based that a week of sleeping in was never actually equipped to fix, no matter how good that week felt while it lasted. Here's the part worth saying clearly, because a lot of people quietly blame themselves for this without understanding what's actually happening. Coming back from vacation and feeling the exhaustion return within days doesn't mean you failed to rest properly. It usually means the vacation successfully treated the symptom, while the actual cause was still waiting exactly where you left it, unresolved and untouched the entire time you were away. The goal was never simply to rest harder or plan a longer trip next time. It's recognizing when exhaustion is pointing at something a vacation structurally cannot fix, and having the harder, more honest conversation about what actually needs to change once you're back. If you've ever felt burnout return within days of getting back from vacation, hit subscribe. And if you want to understand why some people mirror other people's personalities in every relationship they're in, that video's gonna explain more than you expect. Click it